The former owner of the most highly publicized gallbladder in the history of medicine.
The President is doing well, although, of course, as any person will tell you whose gallbladder has been removed, he is experiencing mild discomfort.
It sounds like one kidney stone and one gallstone.
He also wanted a message sent immediately to General Westmoreland in Saigon so that our men in Vietnam will know of my progress.
Within 36 hours, the President was having visitors. One of the first, Vice President Humphery, who had been President for the 3 hours Mr. Johnson was unconscious. The paperwork had already piled up.
It's not just a gallbladder, it's the President's gallbladder. And since it's the President, all of the apparatus of government is involved, because the President, you have to keep in mind, is the fountainhead of our government.
For the course of one routine surgical operation, the worldwide apparatus of American might is tuned in to the heartbeat of this one man. His health affects directly the very economy of the United States. On the day he went into hospital, the President was working hard, signing millions of dollars into a heart cancer stroke research bill. At the Bethesda Naval Hospital, 10 miles away, the finishing touches were being put to turning the hospital into a miniature White House. Phones were being installed, telex machines to let the world know his progress were being put in to supplement blocks of teleprinters. A special press phone room with links going all over the world was ready. Outside the White House, the President brought out his dogs, a beagle and a collie, to go along with him. Then he swung down to the White House railings to say hello to a group of delighted tourists who had just been White House watching. A smile and a handshake for everyone. At Bethesda, the ice was going into the soft drinks machines as every effort was made to make the 2-week day and night vigil of the White House press corps as comfortable as possible. In the hospital auditorium, television camera crews worked against time to have everything ready to transmit live to the nation all that would be said about the President's progress. Early evening, and the last function the President would attend before his operation, a salute to Congress Party, which he went to with Vice President Humphery and their wives. Finally, at nearly midnight, the presidential car drew up outside the hospital doors. The chief executive stepped out into the glare of television lights and walked up the stairs with a cheery wave to waiting newsmen and the millions who were watching on television across America. By dawn the next morning, everything was ready at Bethesda Hospital. I talked to White House Press Secretary Bill Moyers, the man who would give the news, good or bad, to the world.
Mr. Moyers, just what goes into organizing the White House set up round the President when he's in hospital like this?
It requires that the communications which flow from the Situation Room at the White House, the nerve center of our government, move out to where the President is. It requires that members of the staff man these communications systems around the clock, so that in the event of information needing to get to the President and a decision needing to be communicated from the President to the American government, nothing will impair that process. I would say, in one word, communications is the key.
On the third floor, sealed off by Secret Service agents, there was a bustle of activity as the staff prepared for the 2.25-hour operation on perhaps the most important man in the world. At precisely 6:15, the President, who had had the usual pre-operative preparation, was wheeled out of his private suite along the corridor to the operating theater. One floor below, members of his staff who had slept at the hospital overnight were getting washed and shaved, ready for the long day ahead. In the hospital's auditorium, newsmen sat about waiting, playing cards, while television camera crews, who had spent the night lining up their shots, caught up on some sleep.
I know somebody else getting tired.
The auditorium suddenly filled as word went out that it was over.
I intend to go through this material without stopping to spell names or to repeat. I will then go back over the material slowly for any amplification. The President, no, I prefer to do it this way. The President is in his room. He arrived there at 12 noon. He is doing well. Although, of course, any person who has, as any person will tell you whose gallbladder has been removed, he is experiencing mild discomfort. The operation ended at about 9:15. The President's longtime family physician informed me that everything went, in his words, beautifully as expected. The President is resting well in the operating suite. I will be back later in the morning with additional information.
Within seconds of Bill Moyers' announcement, the press phone room behind the auditorium was filled with a babble of 100 voices telling the story in a dozen languages.
President went into surgery at 7 a.m., came out at approximately 9:15. They removed the gallbladder, which contained 8 stones. Another stone was also found in the ureter. And Dr. Kane issued a statement to Moyers saying that everything went beautifully and as expected.
Does that mean a kidney stone? I don't know what it means. Medical prescription. Sounds like one kidney stone and one gallstone.
2 hours later, the reporters waited for the second bulletin.
The operation was described to me by the physicians as routine. There was no cardiac irregularity at all. Blood pressure was normal throughout the surgery. All other responses were normal. During the President's operation, Mrs. Johnson and Lucy remained in the bedroom across the hall from the President's bedroom. The President awoke at 5 this morning, shaved and showered. I arrived in his room at 5:20, and he told me that following the operation, he would like to have Mrs. Johnson inform members of the family of its outcome. He also wanted a message sent immediately to General Westmoreland in Saigon so that, and this is a direct quote, our men in Vietnam will know of my progress. That message was sent approximately 30 minutes following the conclusion of the operation. With the President at that time were Navy nurses, both lieutenants, Elizabeth Chapawicki, who met the President when he arrived last night, and Dorothy Dottie, D-O-T-T-I. Mrs. Johnson came in at 5:41 with a cup of coffee which the President mistakenly thought she had brought him. Mrs. Johnson was wearing a bright red robe which the President had given her for Christmas several years ago.
Lucy arrived at 5:48.
Bill, could you tell us a little more about the incision? Was there just one? Was it larger than it would have been had they not been after the second stone too?
The incision, as I understand it, was not any larger than it would have been if the ureter stone had not been removed. It was, as the doctor said, of simply moderate length. I did not have any specific. It was in the upper part of the abdomen, right in here.
Ken, how soon will we be able to get a report on the pathology, on the gallbladder, and on the chemistry on this ureteral stone?
We'll check on that.
Which operation was performed first? Was the gallbladder removed and then the ureter stone taken out?
We'll have to check on that.
Now, something that surprises people in Britain, I think, is the detail you go into about the presidential innards, if the president would excuse the expression. Is it really necessary to go into that amount of detail?
This is surprising to me, too. I personally don't feel that that kind of detail is necessary. And I have to answer it in a negative way, perhaps, by saying that if we didn't provide that information, if we didn't go to the last detail of what is involved, two things would happen. One, I think the press, which is a collection of cynics at the most and skeptics at the worst, would begin to speculate on why haven't we told them all the details, and to convince members of your fraternity, let's say, that we are being forthright. We have to go to every detail possible to be released. Another thing would happen, however, probably resulting from, although not necessarily so, the reaction of the press. The American people would wonder if they were getting the full story. And it is germane to human nature to suspect the worst if information is not available. All over the world, people's lives, and in fact their destiny, are wound up in the policy of this government. And since that policy is embodied in the president, it's very difficult to do anything but try to reassure the people that what we say is happening is in fact happening. And the only way to buttress our case is to answer the questions that the reporters ask.
Then to the final briefing of the day, and a weary Bill Moyers prepared for another batch of detailed questions.
Did you see the president this afternoon?
Yes.
Could you tell us how he looked, and also if he said to you how he feels? Could you repeat that quote to us?
I asked him, Mr. President, how do you feel? He said, well, I feel all right. He said, I feel some discomfort. But I think I'm in good shape, he said. I think I'm in good shape. He looks, as one would expect a man to look who had just had his gallbladder removed, tired. But otherwise, I think, fine tonight.
Another briefing today?
No, this is my last briefing of the day. If any information becomes available to me, I will come here and give it to those who are here or post it. I strongly believe that this will be a quiet evening. I plan to go home for dinner. I anticipate nothing to come out of the press office. However, if at any moment I have anything that would be of value to you, I will certainly give it out.
Still not satisfied, the White House press corps intercepted Moyers for more details. With the last details squeezed dry, the newsmen went to their telephones. Within 36 hours, the president was having visitors. One of the first, Vice President Humphery, who had been president for the 3 hours Mr. Johnson was unconscious. The paperwork had already piled up. The president was suffering mild discomfort, but was making what his doctors have called a remarkable recovery. By Sunday, he was being filmed with his family, and they all joined in a brief bedside service. And then the former owner of the most highly publicized gallbladder in the history of medicine relaxed with his wife.